Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one. Back with another one. This is we're gonna talk about the Minoans, from Crete or Cretan Minoans, right? So we're gonna talk about these people. I said this is like part one, part two, and I believe how many parts is this? We can make a whole series about it. Let's talk about it. It's four parts. So we'll try to talk. Let's do one and two. We can do that. It ain't gonna be long because I'm gonna skim through some of it anyway. I'm not gonna go in depth. I got to see how long this one is because one is very strange because a lot of it's research. Shouts to the real history www.com bringing this information about this group of people and the research and all the other things. It's talk about the Balkan states and all this stuff. This is kind of like the ancient and the current ancient, and then during the modern where they at now and where they're placed. So, and they said sexual selection and all that. We're gonna skip that, but the Grimaldi man and all this other stuff, the mating system and all that, we're gonna we're gonna skip that. And they show the ancient black styles and all that. Um, that's what we're going with, Egyptians and stuff like that. That's what the giving an idea. The Greece, Cretan, Seleucids, and um, Cyprus. And I don't want to be too graphic with it. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna keep it as what you see the tomb and all this other stuff. And yeah, because I don't want to get into arguments and like that. So we ask, okay. So we'll skim through. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Two could be kind of graphic. Sinus is acting up. The Pelagians, yeah, we're gonna talk about the Messenian and all that. And then we'll talk about it. I don't want to be too graphic on here because I talked about this before. I don't want to be too graphic because, you know, control the content as much as I can because he added some stuff and then killing wars and see bodies and all that. You get the idea and the gist. The Minotaurs. I'm trying to skim through, but then you have the Chronos statue from 509 BC. I might add that, but that ain't little nothing. And that's the bust statue for Crete. Okay, we'll deal with that. I think part two will be all right. I ain't gonna get popped for that. That's educational. You know how it is. But yeah, it depends on the individual they claim and whatever. So what do we have is basically just stuff that we have and normally. Oh fuck! Yeah, I don't like this at all. See the thing about this in the background. Yeah, load up, please. Jesus, man. Woo! I don't want to say fuck Jesus or whatever you want to call it, or Yahshua's and all that. All right. So we're going to talk about the Minoans and the Cretes, right? The Cretan people or the Minoan people. It'll be under that. So basically, we're talking about a group of people that doesn't exist anymore. They bred out, conquested by other groups, and they moved on to pastures. They used to rule in part of Europe. Now we'll do part three and four because I know they're gonna be very graphic, with the sexual images and things like that. So I'm going to tone it down as much as I can. We'll do a part three and four on this, but we'll have to adjust to what we got. So for right now, we're just gonna go. Let's see. Let me share the screen. Too much. My mouth is tipping on the mic. The mic noises. My apologies, but I'm close to it. I have to relax. Okay, let's go right here. So that's what we were talking about. The Minoan people, also known as the Minoan civilization, named for the legendary king. Minos, King Minos, or the Minoans, the Minoa civilization or Crete. The following are excerpts from the Book of Myths of Crete, Pre-Hellenic Europe by Donald Mackenzie, 1917. But like all the white writers' history, he struggles to tell black history without actual mentioning of black people. As an example of the pre-Hellenic actually means pre-whites, as the Hellenes were the first white Central Asians to reach the Western Europe, but many of its many of the factual observations are accurate, but we begin with these except from its book. But quote, if only ones within the years of archaeology and all that. Okay. I think I read this before. You can see it all in my pre-records. I'm not gonna spend too much time. So basically it's talking about a book. That's a long read. I ain't got time, but I'll show you what this is. I think it's Martha, Siberia. This is 21,000 BCE. This is a long time ago. This old bus. And explains in you get this real history www.com of the world ancient Minoan Greece 1. You can find Minoan if you see their stuff. It's got 4 parts. You can read and do the research. I'm just showing you the pictures of it right now. I ain't gonna do a whole lot of reading, but yeah, this is what they talked about. I talked about this before, and then they got it one in France, 15,000 BCE, and it's all this other stuff. This is all the stuff that's happened. And they said the myths of the Crete and pre-Hellenic Europe by Donald Mackenzie continued. The influence of the Aegean culture, which has assumed its specific character in Crete, extended far from the distance of our troll to the stripe of the northern western Anatolian coastline, which came under a way of the Trojans. But in the early Minoan period, Crete was in contact with Egypt of the hand of with his Hasaric Troy and Silicades, another pupil, former teacher of the latter. And it is possible that Troy earliest see from the Mileos, and rather than along the overland and the trade route from Sinai. But it would appear that there were certain amounts of regular shipping traffic of the Aegean Sea in the Neolithic times. Yeah, it says Neolithic times. Crete was what Crete, as we have seen, imported the obsidian from the Mileos, and long before the introductions of metal, working in the beginnings of the trade, can be traced at the Magasa, where the flakes were found to be associated with the extremely crude pottery of a great antiquity, but it was also developed apparently during the latter stages of the Neolithic culture, to which the obsidian knives from the Knossos are assigned. But the early peoples who reached the Crete probably can be by the way of the Silicades, either from the Anatolian or coast, Grecian coast. Before they accomplished this feat, the art of the navigation must have advanced considerably. But if it is held on the yeah, on the other hand, and they have passed direct overseas from Cyprus or Libya, we will must conclude that they were skilled mariners and who have possessed well-equipped vessels and were quite capable of conducting the sea traffic from the very beginning of the perhaps when the Cretan inscriptions can be read in some light will be thrown from the aspects of the problem. So yeah, it's talking about the Crete people, and this is right here, and you have the we talked about France. This is 30,000 BCE in the Cave cave right here, paintings and walls, and this is part one. And the Grimaldi man of the old Stone Age, 1914. So more evidence of the Grimaldi man. You see the skulls right here. Talk about the Grimaldi man. I mentioned that before. He went up in the ice in Europe and migrated. They would look like this. That's just a. That's not the actual people. What they really look like. That's the description. They would have the heads like a Grimaldi man would came to Europe. And this is factual, scientific DNA, real research. They said it came from the Grimaldi man. People did their research, and you got real scholars, no matter what race of the scholars, but they tell the truth that this is it. So let me explain something. Let me put it back on me. The Grimaldi man, we ain't gonna spend much time on it because that'll take too much time because we're trying to get to the peoples. What the Grimaldi man people look like. And I'll show you the hairstyles in a minute. and then we'll show you the pictures. We're gonna get to the nitty gritty. So the Grimaldi man is just an example of many other things that the Grimaldi man in Europe was basically, by and large, is one of the best educational guesses that it has, right? So when the Grimaldi man had his prowess, you know the Grimaldi man is the real deal. So when you talk about real stuff and real research, you're talking about the aspects of what's going on around the world, and then you expect like these things to happen. So I understand the Grimaldi man is like this ancient person or peoples, wherever you that's describing the peoples of that went up in Europe. So when you talk about these things and histories and things like that nature, and then it just goes to show you that the Grimaldi man did his thing. A lot of the Africans stayed where they had stayed and they migrated with different parts of the world. So it's nothing new. And you see this stuff all the time, and you just have that mindset of what it's going to be. And I'm just like here to tell you that's the stuff that you got to look in the history books and just and flavigate and whatever. So yeah. So let me go out real quick. So that's the stuff that I'm talking about. But when you get into stuff like this all the time, all together, and then you just look at the stuff what we're going on to. So and this out of the way real quick. We ain't gonna spend on time too long. Okay. I'm just gonna explain and talk for a minute, and get this out of the way. Move this back just a little bit, lean forward into let's get this real quick. Let me get it right here. Okay. Today's black women still use this ancient hairstyle. Some, black women. It's not that many, but he's right. This complexion. He's talking about the West Ham and or in general, some of them do, but not all. Other cultures don't do it, but our women do. In other cultures, yeah. So it's kind of like that's just an idea. Every culture had that style. Every dark nation had this style, or black culture. You want to say, yeah? That's he's just guessing. They have their own look. These own people. If you saw them in person, bone structure. That's a don't look. See, these are busts, by the way. Always remember these are busts. That's what they look like. This is Crete, Lady of Axura, 650 BCE. See, that's modern of now coming to CE, right? This is like BCE means ancient, the ancient world, what they would look like in modern times. And it says, as it's with other ancients over time, the Minoans progressed to the point where they became master builders. One of their great achievements was the aqueducts to the brought fresh water from the mountains to their capital of Knossos, which means the mile away. They said which was many miles away. But these are the Atticates. The Atticates supplied the water from the world's first flush toilets, as well as other uses. At the peak of the Minoan civilization, paved roads to the multi-story townhouses where prominent archaeological evidence suggests that the Minoan society was remarkably peaceful. Their towns had no fortifications. That's a fact. I talked about this before on a pre-record. It's not much, and then and that's a Minoan fresco right here. You see that? And you just gotta look at the stuff that you gotta have. And then you just look at it like, I'm relaxed right now. I had to lean forward. And I'm leaning towards the side and all this other stuff. And then you just look at it what it means. So, don't mind it if my system's in the background making that noise. So yeah, that's what the people look like. So Crete Minoans, Crete Minoans bringing the tributes to Egypt, the tomb of Rachemenia, the governor of Thebes, an advisor during the reigns of Tutmosis III, and Amenhotep the second, 18th dynasty, circa 1400 BCE. It's pretty much clear. I've covered this in several streams and pre-records talking about this, and I show this picture a lot. If you see my old pre-records in Greece and ancient Greek, and the same thing, the Minoans tribute, same thing, 18th dynasty, 14 BCE, and you see the tribute to Egypt and all this other stuff. So yeah, that's what they would look like today. Only black women still use the ancient hairstyle. It's a few. She's one, and a few others. Modern white people, Greece. Black history, cardinal forms of people of linear Greece, cranial, prehistoric Aegean, and all this other stuff. The Silicads, Cyclades, or should we say, yeah, Cyclades, yeah, the Cyclades Islands. I pronounced it wrong. I kept saying it's Cyclades, yeah, Cyclade Islands. The early Cycladic culture developed on a parallel lines to the early Minoans, but thanks to obsidian from the Melos and marble from the many islands and local sources of the gold, silver, and copper in the Cycladic islanders and the rapidly becoming prosperous as the Cretan early Bronze Age merged with the incident of the Middle Age Bronze Age. But the early Cycladic period is a celebrated principally for its statuettes and vast faces and carved from the brilliant courses of the crystallized marble of these islands. But the statuettes, mostly uh, goddesses, are among the first products of the Greek Bronze Age. But they owed their charm for the extremely simple locations of a boldly forms. But the typical Cycladic idol is a naked female lying with her back, with her head back, and her arms crossed over her breast. Okay. That's what they say. That's a bust. That's 4000 BCE. And then they show these figurines and the size for the few inches and, talking about in the feast and the length. Okay. So they are wild right here. And they show you Cyprus. Yeah, Cyprus, mythological birthplace of Aphrodite, Adonis, and the King Cyprus and Tursa and all that. Yeah. And Cyclops myth. Cyprus 600 BC. You've seen this before. You've seen this on my channel, pre-records and all that. And then you see all this stuff. And then the 400 BCE with the boy and all that, the symbols and all that. This is pretty much the same example of white Samani here. Yeah, we ain't gonna get into that. So we're gonna stay up in here. This is part one. This is part one. So part one explains the Minoan side of it and Crete and Cyprus. I didn't want to get into it because I've done this already on pre-records explaining this stuff is wild, man. Like you learn a lot of stuff about the cultures and stuff like that. So I understand why people don't get into it. We're gonna get into part two. We'll do part three later next week. So we just gonna have to, and you're gonna be seeing whatever. All right. Let's see what we got here. The name, the the palace, the Palacians, yeah, the palace, something like that. Is the Pelagians or something like that? The Pelagians. The name Pelagians was used by ancient Greek writers, referred to as populations to be predecessors of the White Hellenes in Greek. But during the classical period, the enclaves under the name survived in several locations of maintaining Greece and Crete and other regions of the Aegean. But the population identified as uh, Pala- Pelagians or something like that. Pelagians spoke in a language, spoke a language that at the time Greeks identified as non-Greek, as not Greek. But the tradition also survived. A large part of Greece has once a Pelagian before being the Hellenized. Being Hellenized before being Hellenized, archaeological excavations, excavations during the 20th century have unearthed the artifacts and early traditions and inhabited by the Pelagians like the Thessaly and Attica and Lemnos. And archaeologists have ex, I mean, excavating as the Seacoast and the Endymion have described Pelagians, material culture as Neolithic. So they call it Neolithic. In a Messenia, or Messene, or something like that. I've talked about this before. Yeah, this is a rough period. They showed the bust. And this came in 4500 BCE, Thessaly, Greece, Messenia, Lion Gate. You see that old culture, right? Pre-Greece. So I'm not gonna get into the reading. It's a lot of reading. I've did this before, and then the 1500, 15 1550 BCE. It goes to 1650 to 1550 BCE. On the citadel walls of Messina was the graves of the earliest kings of Messenia and their families, dating to the beginning of the late Heldic the first period, 1650 to 1550 BCE. They're enclosed lowercase circular like it's around 7 meters to 7 feet. Amazing, ain't it? Grave circle missing. Yeah, we gonna that's the arguments and all that. And that's what the people look like in the bust and all this other stuff. And you see all this all the time. We're gonna skim through it, and that's the cultures of what, and that's what you would get in part two. And then you have the bust and the face and all this other stuff. I talked about this before. So yeah, it's not that much right here. We're just gonna stop it. So basically, part two is basically we got all this stuff, and we'll talk about I'm gonna stop sharing it, but we already talked about part one and two, so it's not that much to talk about. Like I've talked about this on pre-records and stuff like that. I just want to touch on it, but yeah, it's amazing history. You can look this for yourself. The Minoan crop harvesters, we talked about that later. It's no need to talk about it. So it's like the Pelagians and Minoans and the Cretans or whatever you want to call it, they're the people, at that time. So at that time period, you got to understand that this period is where this is before us and before anybody. So when you're talking about a group of people that don't exist anymore, a lot of people conquested, did their thing, and just it's a matter of minutes. So when you talk about a group of people that just have these things on the wraps, you will know things like that. So when you notice things like that, you understand that this stuff happens all the time. So when you're dealing with this type of stuff, you just know that a lot of things happen for a reason. Then you get into the things that you really need the most. And that's the thing that you have to really look at in the big picture and be mindful of. So, and again, you just got to look at the big picture, what's going on and how you do things and how you move forward in life. So when you talk about a group of people, they just like when I first saw it years ago, I thought it was interesting. They had a lot more. I had pictures of it somewhere on my other computer and things like that. I can't little download on this particular thing because it's based off the internet. So, it needs the internet to do damage. Oh, shit. Excuse me. But it is what it is. So until next time, we'll catch you on part two of part 3 and 4 of the Minoans. And part one is just basically, and two is basically the beginning of the actual culture of it. So, what I'm saying? I ain't got really much to going on. So, so with that, people of Israel and Gentiles, shalom to you as well. Until next time, yes, I'll see y'all next Wednesday, and we're going to talk about it. So signing off, and I'm out.